record. That's probably okay that I wasn't recording that because I say it every single time. It's almost always the same. So people who watch our recordings have heard that spiel already about what we do. So anyway, super excited. This is our first time doing this kind of a social hour. So yeah, the idea here, maybe we'll just go around, kind of do quick round of introductions, and just chat about whatever is on your minds. So we were thinking, if you been working on a project lately, or you read an interesting blog post, or you're job searching and have want to just kind of get other people's ideas about how that goes. Anything's kind of fair game. So I'm Andrew Hedges. I'm founder of Collab Lab here in Portland, Oregon, and we'll pass it off to the next person to do all the introductions. So next person on my screen is Rachel. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rachel Fishoff. Sorry, there's lots of cats, so you'll see tails and other things in a small house. No, I use she and they pronouns. I'm based in Durham, North Carolina. I was part of the Collab Lab in October, the cohort, and then I was part of the advanced project from January to March. And then I also just help Andrew coordinate the tech talks. Yeah.
Do you want to pick the next person?
Sure, Nikki's next on my screen.
Okay.
I have to ask, are there any of them Munchkin kitties?
Okay. No, they're regular sized cats. I have Big Boy and Dre, named after Outcast. I adopted, they're my pandemic babies. I adopted them in August. This is Big Boy, he's huge. Oh, and then his sister is around too.
Wow.
I really want to meet a Munchkin kitty.
Yeah, when I first got Dre, I thought she was Munchkin because she was so scared that she was just like crawling everywhere. And my partner was like, no. Her legs are normal. She's just
My name is Nikki Sato. I use she and her pronouns. I'm based in Portland, Oregon. Right now I'm job hunting. I'm learning AWS and cloud native just to broaden my horizons. So
Nice. Who's next, Nikki?
Well, Rachel's on, I guess, Arvin?
Okay.
All right, so my name is Arvin Fernandez, based in New York City. Just finished the software engineer program about a month ago. Been job hunting. Well, not really, just getting ready to job hunt, getting my resume ready. I'm currently, well, like 2 days ago, I started learning like Git commands because with the labs, we only did like Git add, Git push. So none of that like merge branching and stuff and like pull request. And I'm starting to get familiar with it, working with some of my old projects. So today I did my first merging of a feature branch. So that's my accomplishment for the day. What else? I really enjoy React.js and JavaScript.
Cool.
And the next person would be, Brent.
Hi, I'm Brent Scamo. I am a full stack product engineer based in Portland, working for a San Francisco company I've been with for 4 years. I work mostly with React, JavaScript, Rails, and I do a lot of the product side of stuff as well as the engineering side. So I'm helping the team with merging the business goals with the engineering goals, which is a very oft missed skill in a lot of the engineering people who are coming out. So it's been really helpful. We're a distributed team. We've got probably the bulk of our engineers are in Kazakhstan right now, and then everyone else is kind of scattered around here. And yeah, but I'm just trying to meet some more people in the area, especially around Portland. Happy to help. I also went through the bootcamp realm of App Academy several years back. And so I've got some experience in that land, and yeah, learning all the merge stuff and working as the team, like working as a cross developmental team is like so huge. Like getting to work with PMs and designers and engineers and see how it all mixes together is going to make everyone a lot more successful and happy. So let's see, the next person on my screen is Julia.
Hello, my name is Julia and I'm from Vienna, Austria. I was part of the Collab Lab cohort in winter, and now I'm an assistant mentor for the current cohort. And I also, like Arvin, want to start to get my portfolio ready and want to apply in summer for a developer job in Japan and move to Japan. This would be great. Yes, so the next one is Luis.
Hi everyone, I'm Luis, he, him. I'm based in Sacramento, California, and I currently work as a software engineer at a startup called Cerebral, which is building software to help make mental health more accessible. So I've been doing that for about 4 months now, or 4 or 5 months. It's my first software engineer position. And before that, I was working at an agency, doing like web development work, building websites for about 4 years before that. So that's what I'm working on. We build in React and Rails. So, and I have a dog. So that's my pet.
This is also a Collab Lab mentor.
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
Who's next?
I will pick Franco.
Hey, yeah, my name is Franco, he, him pronouns. I'm in Portland, Oregon. Back in March, I graduated from Alchemy Collab, which is like a 6-month full stack program. And we mostly use like React, Node, Express, and Postgres. And so, yeah, so last month I started a little bit of job searching and I kind of ramped it up over the past couple of weeks. And I also recently joined this program that has a similar name. It's called Collab, and so in Alchemy we actually did like several team projects, like working remotely, doing all the GitHub stuff. But one thing that this program does, it's like it's similar. You're making a project over 6 weeks, but each team is also working with like a product manager and designer, which I haven't really done before. You know, all our dev teams like did all that ourselves. Yeah, so it's been it's been good to start to learn like the other parts of the process. And yeah, next person on my screen is is Jennifer.
Sorry, I haven't used Zoom in a while. I forgot where the mute button was. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm not as active with Collab Lab anymore. I do a lot of like ancillary things now. My pronouns are she, her. I'm also based out of Portland, Oregon. I also went the boot camp route. It's been a little bit now. Maybe 2019, I think, is when I was in boot camp. So I've I'm coming up on like 1.5 years at my job right now. I'm currently creating curriculum for a data engineering bootcamp. And so that's my current job. And I also do, that's one side. And then I also do, what do I do? Brain fart, because it's the end of the day. I do client work. So a lot of like web development work, prototyping for different companies and things. And so it's nice because I get to do more writing creative things, but also just doing the straight coding. And then I've been a Collabby, right? That's what we're calling ourselves. Yeah, Collabby. I was like TCL 5, and then I was the first group to go through the advanced TCL, and then I became a mentor, and then I never kind of left. I just always hang out in the Slack now. So that's me. Nice to meet everybody. Let's see who hasn't gone yet. I think Lyle, have you gone? Okay.
I have not. So hi, I'm Lyle. I'm a full stack developer out of Portland, Oregon. He, him. Yeah, my life lately has been trying to do a lot of stuff in Angular and learning Scala at the same time. I was like a back-end Java guy, and then I went spent a few years doing Angular stuff, and now I'm trying to like do all of that put together. So it's a bit of a challenge because I started with my job there in January. But yeah, me, just kind of working through it. I think I've been doing this for what, 8 or 9 years now.
Nice. Who's next? We have two left.
Oh,
Brittany and Sahil.
sorry. How about Brittany? I think you're next on my screen.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Brittany or Britt. Pronouns are she, her, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. And right now I'm in my first developer job and I'm working for a company that does a lot of different sites for different clients. So it's been a lot of learning in the past few months, like WordPress and PHP, and just learned something called Hugo, which was really fun. Just like a static site generator. So yeah, I've been doing learning for my job, and then I just participated in Collab Lab TCL 17, and that was amazing. And I'm hoping to kind of dive in and stay active in Collab Lab as a Collabie, yeah. And just so grateful for the community. And let's see, I think who has not gone? I'm sorry, I joined a little late.
Yeah, Sahil is our last person.
Sahil, take it away.
Hi. I don't know why I'm kind of nervous being last. I feel pressure. Hi, I'm Sahil. I'm in Austin, Texas. I am also bootcamp alum, but I'm currently I actually started going through launch school's curriculum just because I needed a kind of review. I'm mostly just focusing on Rails and Ruby just because that's what I learned. I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask is I am like really, I almost kind of don't care like which language or framework I learn. I feel like I have to get a little more strategic with my decisions in terms of actually landing a job. So if there's any advice anyone has, that was one of the questions I had today. And I will leave it at that because I don't know what else to say.
That's totally fun. I feel like you're part of the Collab Lab community, even though you haven't taken part as a developer.
Yeah,
and you haven't mentored or anything, but you come to all the tech talks, like you're very consistent presence.
I haven't applied because I've held off on learning React, and I know React is one of the requirements.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people, like I like to learn from first principles. And so like learning another like framework to me, I always like put it off, but I kind of feel like I have to start getting more practical because I know like everyone uses React today. So if anyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of jobs that call for React. So it is a good thing to know if you're going to be working in the front end. I don't know, do other people have kind of ideas about like just like what Sahil was talking about around like, do you go deep in one thing and try to like build up expertise to get a job, or do you try to like learn whatever's hot in the market at the moment?
I don't know if I would go super deep on one thing if you're just, starting out. I'd say, try and get the basics of, kind of a few different things to make sure that you're covered. So, being able to kind of more or less build up an app, even though it's not awesome, as opposed to like, being a super great database guy, just because you're going to need to, have those years of experience to go with that deep dive for people to really want to hire you to do just that. You know what I mean? So I think, leaving yourself open to options too, so that you're not, pigeonholing yourself into React and then you go, oh, I, hate React specifically, but there's other, parts of doing the job that I really enjoy. And there are more things out there, right? I do Angular, but it's not super different from React, but there's just a whole world of stuff. So I'd say, keep your options open and be general. My opinion on that.
Yeah, you'll find that, especially when you're interviewing for jobs, every company's stack is like a little bit different, right? And it doesn't make sense for you to be a complete expert on everything in the beginning. And so I usually like to, or when I was first starting, I like to be really comfortable with one language. And then once you're really comfortable with one language and one framework, it's really easy to branch off from there. Like, for example, I had a love-hate relationship with React at first, but then I went through Collab Lab, and then now that's all I do, even at work now too, is mostly just React. But then because I am also a consultant, I got thrown onto a project where they were like, hey, the other consultant doesn't really know front-end dev, and the project's in Angular, and we have to deliver in a couple of weeks. So I learned Angular in a day. And so that's kind of like how it goes. So I think once you become really comfortable with something, even though there's like nuances in Angular that are different from React, I was still able to be like, oh, this is kind of like this in Angular is like this in React, or and vice versa. And so that's how you kind of like adapt as a developer. Because I think, Andrew, you mentioned, and a lot of people mentioned before, it's like a T shape, right? Eventually, once you get more into your career, you'll delve more deeply into a certain topic or a couple of them. But in the beginning, as you the stack that you learn will change as who you're interviewing with, because you'll be like, oh, these people want PHP. I know nothing about PHP. Time to like really, really go into it before the tech interview. So that's at least my advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I
guess
I think there's. Oh yeah, go for it, Robin.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I had a sort of similar question as Sahil, because I first started learning Ruby, and then we went on to Sinatra, just building off, and then Rails eventually, and I loved it. I was super comfortable with Ruby and how it read and its syntax with the blocks and then everything, the do ends. And then, we transitioned to JavaScript and React. And I don't know, I just end up liking it more. And now that I'm going back to Rails, it's just not as enjoyable, but I still need it for my backend because, that's or the database persistence and like, using it as an API, constantly making calls to it. So I was just gonna ask, like, when you know all these languages, how do you balance that? Still like not totally forgetting about Ruby and the front end stuff.
It's a really good question. Yeah, I'm kind of looking around to see if anybody's eager to answer this one. It's yeah, because over the years I've done a little bit of a lot of different things, and I see. There's kind of I think it's okay to kind of be broad and sort of full stack early on, because there's so much to learn, and there are important things to know about each layer of the stack, and at some point you're gonna figure out that you really want to live in one, maybe kind of narrow down the things that you like, the area where you kind of spend most of your time, and go really deep into that. So I know for me, early in my career, I was much more full stack, and I was designing database schemas, and I was doing front end stuff and all those kinds of things. And eventually I decided, like, where was really rewarding for me was the front end work, and I went deeper in that, got to know that better, narrowed that down to mobile web. So I kind of try to narrow that down even more. So there's always time to do that. I think early in your career, like Jen was kind of saying, kind of picking up multiple things is actually helpful, because it's like there's a principle in learning where if you practice one thing and you do it over and over again, you'll learn the thing eventually. But if you try to do the same thing in a slightly different way, you're going to actually learn it faster. So you learn a little bit of Ruby, like some basic program, loops and conditionals and stuff, and then you see it in another language, you see it's done another way. And you go to like Python or some other third language, and you're like, okay, and you start to map those things to each other, and you start finding that those things are common across all the languages, and they just have slightly different ways of solving the problems, right? Anyway, I guess that's a lot of stuff to say, that you just have to kind of, if you want to keep up the skills in both areas, you just have to be finding a way to kind of do a little bit in each thing, so you don't lose it. little bit like being like a musician or something who plays multiple instruments or something, you know, like you
Or
can,
like
it's hard.
speaking a
Yeah.
language.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just
it is. It's literally speaking a language or
Yeah.
writing a language, typing a language.
But I mean, I even talked to our senior engineers though, and like because at work, it's like I do data engineering, but I also do like front end stuff. But then sometimes like we're also writing our like curriculum, like a lot of data engineering stuff's in Python, and so you switch back and forth a lot in some jobs, and you even for senior engineers, like that's still hard. Like it's not like you're not expected to be like a magician and just like spit everything out in 2 seconds. Like for me myself personally, like it takes me about like maybe an hour in the morning if I'm switching like languages to like it's like context switching. So you just kind of like have to flip that switch in your brain and then get comfortable and cruise. So I think also just like I personally really like having some sort of like journal or like note-taking system. So when I learn a new language or I learn a new something, I write down the things that were difficult for me to understand or hard to find an answer for when I first start learning. So I think that way it's easier for me to switch. Or if I'm like, oh yes, I ran into this problem before. How did I fix it last time? And so if that's what you're afraid of, that's something that you could do.
Yeah, smart. It's one of the reasons I love when just blogging too, especially as you're learning. You know, you learn something, you blog about it, and then you always have that to kind of refer back to. I did a lot of that early in my career too, and I wrote blog posts probably 15 years ago that I still refer to sometimes.
I keep a lot of notes in Evernote, and then I use the search functionality in it. So I'll like I'll keyword stuff my own like snippets and stuff in there, so I know I'm looking for this. And a lot of times, like I don't know, I imagine most people's jobs, their knowledge base isn't the best laid out or structured thing. Like we're getting ready to find our 4th different solution in 4 years for like what you want the the engine of the knowledge base to be. So it's like I find like having my own version of the stuff that I need to find really helpful. And speaking slightly to the other thing, it's not exactly the same, but like our code base is 7 years old now, and it's a giant monolith. And like a lot of times, even doing the same thing in the same code base, I'll have to do it 3 or 4 different ways. We have HTML HAML files, we have ERB files, we have JSX files. And on one project, I might have to be basically, you know, and they're straight up HTML files. So like I could be just writing plain HTML in 4 different ways in 4 different files on the same project, like in a given day. So a lot of times you just learn a lot of, I don't know, mimicking, just being able to read and reproduce a pattern, or, you know, as long as you understand what you're trying to do and what it's all converting down to, it's like sometimes the input or the syntax is going to be slightly different. So you just got to be able to like train yourself to see those patterns and be able to replicate and duplicate that, and you're going to get really far that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like if you have like I know I need to loop over and like create a bunch of list items or something, and there's got to be a way to do that in you know, ERB or whatever the thing is, right? So you just look up, like, you know, like that's one of the things, like as you get more experience, you get better at Googling. You know, like you learn like what to search for in order to find the answer, you know.
Yeah. And in the rare case you can't find the answer, that's when you should probably write a blog post or write it down for your own journal.
And once you figure it out, yeah. Figure it out, write a blog post, so the next person's able to Google it, right? Yeah, cool. Good questions. Sahil, does that at all help?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that I guess maybe when you're sitting on the outside, it just it feels like people just want specific things. But from what I'm gathering, it's more you're probably going to learn most of it on the job. So I probably should just, whatever I can do to get a job, I should start being a little more practical in my learning. And then once I'm there, then I can really figure things out instead of sitting here and racking my brains, and that's what it sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah. I mean, if you take the long view of like, you're going to do this work for the next 20 years or something, you're not probably going to do the same thing, 15 or 20 years from now that you're doing now. Like you might, like it could be a totally different stack, right? And you might switch stacks several times in your careers. So I think like one of the things that I know I look for when I'm hiring somebody early in their career is just that they're learning fast. So if there's a way for you to demonstrate that you're able to pick up concepts quickly, then that's the kind of thing that would give me confidence. Like, oh, I can hire you, and even though you don't know the thing that like you've done Rails, but you haven't done a lot of React, like I could train you on that, kind of get you up to speed quickly. Whereas like actually I'm a little wary of people who they've only ever done one thing. Like they're 3 or 4 years in their career and they've only ever just done kind of Rails backends or something. Because then like they don't have that way to like kind of cross, like to map things to other novel problems, if you know what I mean. Like they have the kind of one thing that they're comfortable with.
I think if a company's smart, and a lot of them are not smart, but a lot of them are working on being smart, the job postings really should be more of a description of the job that you're going to do and the technologies that they use, and less about the stuff that they are looking for. In that, like, yes, it would be great if someone walked off the street and knew everything about exactly how they did their stack, but that's almost impossible. So usually you're looking for people who are interested in kind of working with that and have familiarity with the technologies that you're looking at so that they can dive in and get to work. But almost everybody, like, you have to mold a little bit. You have to teach them new stuff. And even if like you did everything by the book, like your stack is still going to be weird that people are going to have to learn, right? So I think, kind of going into that knowing, hey, I know how to do lots of stuff, right? And I have experience in a couple of things, right? So I've done React specifically, or I've worked with this and that database. Then you can walk in and sort of adapt that to the job that you're applying for.
Yeah, I think that's the mismatch, is that when you're sitting in like my position and you read all these descriptions and it's just like, it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to spend like another year or two just to fulfill all that. But I think it's more, from what you guys are saying, it's more, I think maybe the challenge is just putting myself out there and like maybe demonstrating everything I'm attempting to learn, and just eventually that's what matters.
And I was going to say, Sahil, you mentioned that you haven't like gone for Collab Lab yet because you don't know React. And I was just going to mention, I think one of my teammates, Viet, didn't know React before we started, and he did just fine. Like I think there's enough support, there's enough teamwork, mentorship, and also the project is set up, I think, just enough that you can kind of dive in and learn throughout the process. So just, I wanted to put that out there so that, not everybody's coming into it with React experience, even though I think it's helpful, but not totally necessary. I don't know if Andrew, if you'd agree.
Yeah, I could. I'll back that up. It's if you're comfortable with JavaScript, I mean, I think that's probably a prerequisite, to be honest. But and you've done something else, and you spend a weekend doing a couple of kind of maybe little like tutorials, kind of working through like a couple of sample projects. That's probably enough to give you enough experience to participate in the cohort. So what we would do in that case is put you on a team with other people who are more experienced in React, so you can kind of learn alongside them. Like when you're like we do, it's all pair programming like the whole throughout the project. So you'd be pairing with people who have a little more experience than you, but you can still contribute in other ways by helping problem solve, and like there's the actual language and the syntax of what you write is 10% of what you do as a programmer. So it's really like, what's a smart way to set this up so it's going to be easy to maintain? What's the problem we're trying to solve? Let's make sure I'm going to go ask a question to clarify this acceptance criteria. Like all that stuff is what takes up most of the time and effort in this project work. So I wouldn't let it hold you back necessarily. Like, take a stab at a couple tutorials and then apply.
Okay.
What else?
So I had a thought or a comment. Andrew, you were saying, the thing that you look for when you're hiring is that people are learning quickly and picking up concepts quickly. And it's interesting that you said that, because I was just talking with a friend the other day, and I was talking about, I'm really like hardworking and I guess diligent or reliable. We were just talking about like what are some strengths, but I take longer to pick things up. I think it takes me a lot longer to get concepts. I may have to like relearn something, I don't know, 5 or more times, and then once I've got it, it's pretty solid. But I guess what kind of advice either do you have, or is there anyone else out there who feels the same way? Because I'm finding that I'm getting to a point where I'm just like, I should just be honest about this in an interview, because if I'm not, I'm going to be acting like, oh, I can totally pick anything up, like, right away. And that's just not true. And I feel like I have to be kind to myself and accept that, and wonder if anyone else feels the same way.
Well, I mean, you and I have been pairing a little bit on a project recently, and we talk about something. You come back the next time, and you've learned the thing, and you can show, like, you were showing me some code earlier that where like you applied currying to something that like where you just learned the concept. So to me, that's what I mean by that. It's not that you can like see something for the first time and like I got it. Like but that diligence that you bring to it means that you are like, oh, I don't get that, but I'm gonna keep at it until I do. And it's kind of the same thing. Like the end result is you understand the thing after a certain amount of time. So there's lots of ways to get there, I think, but you need to, I mean, the thing that I look for is like, if I coach you through it and I do support you and try to train you on something, like, is it going to stick? And one of the ways that I test for that is the things that do you know them well? So, you tell me about currying or whatever the thing is. Okay, explain it to me. And like I'll be able to tell whether or not you're kind of like, I kind of know the concept, or will you actually kind of understand what's happening, like the order of operations and stuff when you do that. So, yeah, I think you learn plenty fast. And I think bringing that kind of hard work and diligence to it is actually just as much of an asset. So. But I think it's good of you to think of like being clear about how you approach that. Like, don't expect to just throw something at me and like in 10 minutes I'm able to just like spit it back at you. But I will stick with it, and I'll learn it and be able to apply it.
Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. And yeah, just how you think about it and approach it when you're working with someone. It's good to know.
Yeah. It does make me kind of question like that. That's just been like kind of a phrase. The way I talk about it. It's like, oh, somebody who learns quickly or something, but it's not really maybe about that as much. Like there's another kind of like, there's a tenacity or persistence layer to it. Enough with dad jokes.
I sort of have a question about so Rails uses like active record for like making queries to the database and like saving data. So I wondered if that's like looked down upon like on an interview, maybe because of like, I don't know, of like making normal queries, like since it's so much. I think I've read somewhere that it's faster, and employers actually like look at it as a plus. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
So yeah, active records, object relation management.
Object relational mapping. Yeah, ORM.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, ORM. Yeah. So I think there's a there's a lot to this. So ORMs are faster in the sense they're definitely faster for developer productivity, right? Because you're using this layer to kind of give yourself an easier environment to work in, to interact with the database. Depending on the employer, they may, and that's like just like only having experience with an ORM might be fine for an entry-level position. If you're going for a mid-level or something, there's like a position that requires a little more experience, they may be looking for you to also be able to write your own queries, because there are, an ORM is great for 80 or 90% of what you need to do, and then there's that 10 to 20% where it doesn't quite do it right, or it's not performant or something like that. You need to actually drop back to writing your own query directly. So there might be some roles where they're kind of testing for that as well. But if you use an ORM mostly, but you understand sort of what it's doing behind the scenes, that's going to be, for an entry level job, I would expect that to be enough. But every company is different, kind of what they expect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd say too, if you're worried about it, go look it up and say like, okay, so why do people have these opinions about active records? And what is it that makes them say that they would look down upon it, in an interview or whatever? And, look at understanding the pros and cons and what it's actually doing and what it, buys you over doing the thing yourself. You know what I mean? So that when you go into an interview and you talk about it, you can say that, you've used this thing and it's good or bad, but here is why, right? Then that at least tells me that now you understand it and you have like some knowledge about what to do with this thing. And whether or not you like it is sort of secondary to the fact that like, how to use it, what it means. Like that's really important, and that scores more points, I think.
Yeah, I'll Google that. Thanks for that.
I know in my position, like I probably, like when I'm doing anything like that, I'm almost always using Active Record, and mostly it's just doing lookup stuff, like actual looking up, like we have bugs with users and I'm trying to look up information quickly in the database, and I'll be using Active Record and the built-in relationships and stuff there. But like when we have something serious that is going to go out, that's going to be like a big migration that's going to run, or if we're going to have to fix a bunch of stuff on thousands or millions of records, no matter who we are, whether we're junior, mid or senior engineers, we've got a couple of people who are like in charge of that, and we're running by any code that we're doing by them anyways. So a lot of times, like they will take, like they're the only ones who are really, changing our migrations out of Active Record to get that extra 20% boost, like you mentioned, like by converting them, just doing a pure SQL query, or having to do something that no one else would even know to do with our database because it's with some weird setting that we've got in Postgres or something like that. So I think a lot of times, like there are, and sometimes there should be gatekeepers, who are kind of protecting everybody in these cases, and then you run your code by them and they can give you advice or change it, or take it the next, like hand off the baton situation. Like all those different situations happen.
Nikki, I'm curious what brought you here today.
What's up?
I said, I'm curious what brought you here today. Like, did you come thinking you had any kind of questions or anything you wanted, like a
No,
project you've been working on or anything like that?
I actually had the same questions as everyone else, just like whether I should like learn new languages just because the job demands it. The only reason I'm learning AWS is because I had multiple offers turned down just because I didn't have enough, or didn't have any AWS experience for the jobs I was applying for. Just because I was really wanted a front end positions, and they're like, oh, you don't have enough AWS experience, and I was like, well, what part of AWS do you want me to learn? And they're like,
oh yeah,
just in general, and I'm like, that's kind of, AWS is very big, and then
yeah,
and I was like, so which one do you want me to learn? So I told them like I would learn anything, and they're like, yeah, you don't have enough experience. I was like, so
that's frustrating. I mean, why do you need to know AWS for a front end role?
I think they were using a lot of like photo retrieval, just like to store the database, pictures,
Oh, really?
just like using the S3. I found out later they're using S3 to store photos in databases, but I asked them like, why don't you use Firebase so you can? But I think their response was for Amazon they could, I think, expand the tier to like more. Like they can expand it the servers. So I was like, okay. So I'm just trying to like stop myself not to learn all the languages like React Native, and just focus on getting AWS certified and stuff.
I don't know the first thing about AWS. I mean, I know some of it, but I like haven't had to know that. I mean, maybe it's just product of the companies that I've worked at have had people that manage the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't had to get. I mean, I know like I've used S3 on projects and stuff just to dump files or something, but that would take you like you could look at that and in a couple of hours be like, oh, I know how to interact with S3 bucket now. So I don't know why they would.
Yeah, at the time I didn't have it
maybe
on my
if
resume.
maybe if they want you to know how to deploy something on AWS, like using like one of their services, like because there's different ways to do it. That's kind of a weird response. I don't know.
I know, but if they looked at my portfolio, I did a lot of big clones. Like I did a Twitter clone. I was following like React tutorials and stuff, and did Amazon clone. Yeah, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow, I don't know what to say about a company asking an entry-level front-end person to know about AWS. It just seems like, I don't know. And it's just such a broad thing. You know, there's got to be 100 different things that AWS does, right? So,
yeah. And like, how well do you know the internet? And then.
Yeah, right.
I was just looking, somebody posted on LinkedIn the other day, and it was like, they regularly post junior developer positions or entry-level positions, and they were like, just before we get started, to clarify, companies, a junior developer does not have 5 to 7 years of experience.
Oh, Ben?
They should not.
Yeah, we all saw the same post.
Yeah. That post was great. I loved that. I was like, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Franco, how about you?
I don't have any like particular questions, I don't think, for the most part. I was just curious, like sometimes I like just seeing what other people have to ask, because sometimes I'm not really sure what to ask. And I've just been like checking out various like social networking events kind of thing. I guess like the only thing I guess to mention is that so the current project that I'm doing, we are working on building something to make websites more accessible to neurodivergent users by you're trying to find ways for them to be able to like manage control that might be like distracting or painful or otherwise challenging. And so the route we're going is to make like a browser extension. And so far we're working on like, you know, doing something about GIFs and then also like CSS, like animations, transitions, and transforms. So that's what I'm working on right now. So I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or ideas about that, but
that's really cool, really interesting. So you're gonna have, I mean, you're learning all about sort of what different things might be uncomfortable for people with different kind of slices of neurodiversity.
Yeah. Like the product manager did a bunch of research, like they were in the program for a couple weeks before us, and then the designer came in, and then the devs came in, and so we're kind of like following his lead onto like what we're trying to do, and then having to figure out like how to do it. Like I've never made like a browser extension before, so like it's been interesting like learning that, and then also figuring out how to stop movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be really challenging too, because there are a bunch of things in CSS that you could probably do to like disable certain types of like transitions and animations and stuff. But you know, somebody could be running JavaScript that's writing to a canvas or something like that, and then like, what do you do about that? So I don't even know. Like, you probably can't catch all the cases, I'm guessing, but
Yeah, no, totally. And even like experimenting with like GIFs, it's like we can already like do, you know, like basically like the trick I've been doing. I mean, we're taking a bunch of different approaches, but like one of them is to just like target it and like bring their opacity down to 0 so you can't see them. But that won't like necessarily hit all GIFs. But then also like targeted like alt text. Sometimes it says it's a GIF in there, so that's been catching some of the GIFs that don't get caught by file name. But yeah, and it's sometimes doing kind of, especially with the CSS stuff, like that'll like break websites too. So I mean, right now like for this project, we're not trying to like, you know, be able to use it on every website, but just trying to like, get at least like a broad brush. And if we have time, maybe, try to deal with some of those other issues.
yeah, that's cool. It reminds me a little bit of like my last job. It was a small nonprofit that had a SaaS product. It was like a kind of like a browser plugin where you could annotate just any page on the web. So you could, you know, like in Google Docs, how you can like select something and leave a comment or something like that. But it was on any just random web page. So if like in 80% of the cases, it was like super easy and performant. And then, you know, the rest of the web, like when you're dealing with the open web and people authoring pages in all these different ways, like it's just so hard to catch every case. And so like most of the job was just finding some little way that somebody authored something that's slightly different that just broke the algorithm that was trying to like, you know, reattach the annotation or whatever. It's just I don't know, web authors can be maddening in that way. I can't even imagine being like a browser developer and trying to make a web browser that actually works with everything that people put on the web. But
yeah.
It's really cool. I know browsers have some built-in controls for that, and some web pages will. I mean, a good website will, you know, have like a reduced motion version or something. But
yeah, totally.
I was just gonna quickly say, I know a lot of folks here were talking about like networking and like expanding their tech networks and stuff. So I'm just gonna drop my LinkedIn in the chat if anyone wants to like add me or just continue to connect, because I know not all of us are all this through Collab Lab. We're not all in the same Slack. So if anyone else wants to do the same, just so we can build our networks a little.
good idea. I'll do the same too. I think it's going to ask you to for my email address in order to connect with me.
Actually,
Here it is.
Networking, and that's part of the thing I just put in the chat about missing conferences, but I think that was something that happened more, or at least more organically, when some of that stuff is happening in person. And I think actually the push to having everything be online has been great in a lot of ways. It's made a lot of content a lot more accessible and made a lot of the reach just a lot better on stuff. But there was some element of the, hey, look, shake a person's hand and hand them a business card that goes on in those things. I don't know, does anyone come up with any great tricks over the last year for sort of doing that thing, that networking thing in a world where you can't touch anybody anymore, you can't be in the same room?
I prefer the in-person kind of like feeding off people's energy versus like this, but I'm just trying to take it as it comes. I think we talked about this a little bit last week at the end of a talk, just that transition, or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Definitely no great solution for it.
Started using Twitter more.
Yeah.
When people's DMs are open and stuff, you know, just kind of slide on in there and talk to them. Most people are really nice, so I would have never done that before the pandemic. That's how I do it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious how I kind of feel like we should take the best of both. Like it doesn't have to be either or, and I'm kind of hoping because I actually found I've been more social online. I think part of it is just practical. Like I have a little one, and So for a lot of us, it's easier. But then there's also like there's a lot of nuance. Like some people are more comfortable in one setting than other. So I'm just kind of curious, like how I'm kind of hoping we take the best of both worlds, but I have a feeling everyone is so desperate to go back to normal. It's just gonna like, we're just gonna go back to the old way.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of worried about that too.
I have a feeling it's similar to the remote office situation where it's like we've crossed the threshold and we're never going to go fully back to the way it was before. Like it's too many people and too many places have proven that you can get just as much done in a remote situation for it to ever completely go back to where it was. Like people aren't going to say you can't work here because you're not in this physical space. Like there's too much evidence to the contrary now. So I'm hoping a similar thing would be in this too, where you can take the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'm worried about is that there are a lot of companies that are going to go to a hybrid model, and to me, like when I've worked in that setting, it's been the worst of both worlds. So, when everyone's in the office, it's one thing, and you kind of manage it one way, and when everybody's remote, you're all in the same boat, and you kind of have to deal with the constraints. When some people are in the office, some people are remote, or like part of the time or something, then it's that's when you get into the like sort of the hallway conversations happen and certain people aren't included, and then you set up a laptop on the desk to like dial the person in, and if they can't hear everything, like it's all those things that happen. And like I don't know, like I almost would like if I don't know, a hybrid model, if everyone's in the same city, the way I would approach it would be everyone's in the office on certain days together, but when anyone's remote, everyone's remote. So you're just going back and forth between those two modes. But then you can't get the benefit of remote of Julia's from Vienna and she works with the Collab lab. Like we wouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know what the right answer is to it, but yeah, I mean there are ways to pull it off and have it be better than other ways and stuff. But yeah.
That's interesting. I never thought about those nuances. I guess it's more complicated than what I was thinking. So
yeah, just having experienced it on all sides,
The big positive now is though that like pretty much everyone has experienced the remote side. Like that was my big fear. Like I was scheduled to move in April of 2020 prior to the pandemic, and I still ended up moving there. And that's when I was going to start working remote for a company I'd worked in person for 2 years. But then all of a sudden the office is shut down and everyone's working remote, and now we don't have an office anymore. And like pretty much everyone has moved, like, including the founders who aren't even in the city that the company is like set in anymore. But I'm hoping that just the empathy from having been in that seat, that keyboard on the other side of the monitor, makes it easier for everyone to know like the differences in communication and what works for them and what doesn't. And the trick I'm having is the time differential. Like my previous company, like I worked on, were German, and we had 8-hour time differences. So you're remote and time, and now I've got 14-hour time differences. So it's like that's the hard part for me. So if anyone's got special tricks for those, like that's always helpful.
That's a whole other topic, which is working truly asynchronously is actually really hard as well. We're trying to mix those modes. Like you're trying to do some things synchronously and some things asynchronously. It's just it gets to be kind of a mess. So
yeah, I actually have Berlin time on my phone in addition to Portland time, because I have a guy in Germany and I don't want to know what time I'm keeping him up, because it'll be 7, 8 o'clock and he's gonna be like, I gotta go to bed. Okay, yeah. I just thought that was funny. I was like, I don't really about that. I think though, like the problem is, and I've been in companies where there's been the hybrid thing, and the people who are in the office and in the room, especially if you're doing a call where there's like 3 people in a conference room and 3 people on the phone, you've got this natural division now. You've got the people in the room and you've got the people not in the room. And I think a lot of people don't handle that very well, and you're going to create this dynamic where everyone's not on the same level playing field, playing the same game. right? You've automatically created two different teams. If you're conscious of it and you're, actively trying to combat it, I think you can do something about it. But yeah, I've been in situations where that's been not fun because those people, again, it's a natural divide.
Yeah, it can have real implications on like how fast you get promoted and those kinds of things. Like if you're going to lunch every day with the boss is going to have you in mind the next time they're thinking about a promotion. So it's good. It takes a lot of intentionality to kind of fight those biases as a manager. So yeah, it's I don't know. Like I would rather work for a company that's either everyone's in the office every day or everyone's remote all the time. I would prefer the remote, for the record, by the way, or being in an office. Because like when I first started working remote full time on like fully distributed teams and stuff, like I found at first that I missed that social interaction. I missed going to lunch with people and all those kinds of things. So I had to come up with ways to get that kind of thing outside of work, which is actually kind of healthy in a way too. Like work isn't everything in my world, It's like I spend my time on work and I have friends outside of work that I might go to lunch with or whatever else. Then the pandemic hit and it all went out the window. But anyway, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, my frame of reference, so I haven't experienced it yet as in a work situation, but my frame of reference is like schooling a little one, and this seems to be the common experience is that a lot of parents had terrible experiences with everything going to remote learning. And I do have experience, like as someone who's taken both, traditional education and online only. It's kind of interesting because I feel like I feel like what the reason it was such a bad experience for so many is that what happens is that most schools tried to replicate in person over online, and so you ended up with the worst of both worlds because I mean, traditional education has its own drawbacks to begin with, and then when you do that over a computer, especially with like people like mine was 4 at the last year, it's really bad. But online education done well, like it almost scraps the traditional model and just views education from the ground up. Like what would it look like if you reimagine education? And I found like, and courses I've taken where teachers have done that, like that's been, I felt like it was actually better than most of the universities I've gone to. So I feel like for me, that's what I'm interested in is like, I feel like working can be like if it's reimagined from from like an internet perspective, I feel like it can be better. And I'm hoping like we shift in that direction, and same thing with education as well.
Makes a big difference though too. A 4-year-old doesn't have the attention span necessarily like you might to sit in front of a screen and try to like understand a difficult topic or something like that. I mean, I guess maybe at 4 you're not learning that difficult of subject matter, but
it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah, probably all better at it than we were a year ago, but it's still pretty uneven, I think. Well, it's been a little over an hour. Should we call it? This was fun though. Thank you all for good conversation. Maybe we'll do this again the next time we don't have a speaker lined up, which is what happened this time.
Yeah, no, it was great hearing from everyone and seeing new faces and seeing some folks. It was good to see you, Jennifer, and a bunch of other. Yeah, and thanks everyone for coming out. Hopefully come to more tech talks. They're really great to both learn and network. So
yeah, absolutely. Cool. Thanks everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.